AutoTrader is the leading third-party site used by buyers. Our impressions lead to sales. And you don't have to be a guru to know there's a big difference between impressions and sales.
This is Automotive Industry News.
I'm Stacey King, and this is Automotive Industry News. Our top stories: we talk politics with NIADA's man in Washington, and Ford sets ambitious goals for sustainability. But first, in addition to the current issue of the magazine and past issues, the online edition of UCD Magazine also includes exclusive online-only content, giving you more information, strategies, techniques, and ideas to help you take your dealership to the next level. Currently featured, the COVID-19 pandemic accelerated the timetable for digital retailing in the used vehicle industry, making it a necessity for many dealers. But to get the most from your digital retailing, it's going to take something more. In The Difference Maker, SpinCar co-founder and CEO Devin Daly explains how you can raise your digital merchandising game and offers best practices you can use to ramp up your online showroom and maximize conversion. Visit www.ucdmagazine.com to find that and much more. Automotive Industry News will return in a moment.
With 2/3 of shoppers now willing to do their deals 100% online, AutoTrader is making sure you have the right tools to highlight your services to continue selling efficiently and effectively.
For more than a decade, Santi Esposito of Key Advocates has been NIADA's boots on the ground in Washington, D.C., advocating for independent dealers and the used vehicle industry. With a new administration and a new Congress on the way, things are changing in D.C. Santi joins us now to discuss the issues dealers should be watching out for and what you can do to make your voice heard and influence the decisions made in Washington.
While things aren't completely settled, we are finally getting a clear picture of what the federal government is going to look like following the 2020 elections. So let's look at what effect all this is going to have on the economy, small business, and the used vehicle industry. What's likely to change, and what are some of the issues independent dealers should be keeping an eye on?
So the key phrase in your comment is, quote, while things aren't completely settled, close quote. And they aren't, as far as the Senate is concerned. Going into the election, the Republicans had a 53-47 majority. As a result of the election, one seat flipped to the Democrats, so the majority became 52-48. As everyone knows, 2 seats are outstanding, the 2 Georgia seats, subject to a runoff on January 5. If the Republicans take both of those seats, then the majority will stay at 52-48. If they take one, they'll also keep the majority at 51-49. But if they lose both, then the Democrats would take the majority at 50-50, with the vice president casting the deciding vote. Now, why is that critical for the industry? Because the Senate Republicans have been our last stand in terms of defense on issues that are adverse to the industry. And those issues include things like safety recalls, minimum wage, debt collection, military lending, and liability. So if the Democrats take the Senate, and they already have the House and the White House, then the next 2 years are going to be very challenging for the used vehicle industry.
Where do things stand now on the next phase of COVID-19 relief legislation, and what can we expect going forward?
So for the past 3 or 4 months, there have been negotiations about a next round. Agreement was not reached before the election. Now, post-election, McConnell's pushing for an agreement on the stimulus, next round of stimulus this year, because he believes that he has a better chance of getting a bill more acceptable to his members while President Trump is still in office than from a Biden administration. As far as the industry is concerned, there are issues that we have been following throughout the process that we've been advocating for, staying in touch with key members and staff. And those include loans to small businesses, which is the Paycheck Protection Program, streamlined forgiveness of those loans, liability protection, 501c eligibility for those entities, including the association, and various tax issues.
How will the regulatory landscape change under a Biden administration?
They're going to be looking at health, environment, education, immigration, and trade. As far as the industry is concerned, our focus is going to be on the CFPB, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, on NHTSA, National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, on the FCC, and on the Office of the Trade Rep as they look at various regulations, because a lot of what they tend to look at has a focus on our industry. So we want to make sure that we're not only on top of the situation, but are able to influence whatever decisions are made through the regulatory process.
With a new president and a new Congress coming in, how important is it for independent dealers to engage with their elected representatives?
Well, it's always important to engage. Doesn't matter if it's a new president or a new Congress, doesn't matter what political parties. And the reason is because the White House and members of Congress are more inclined to be responsive to constituents than they are to stakeholders or lobbyists. The association, for example, on occasion has come to DC during the springtime, a smaller group, when they've made the rounds doing meetings with key members and staff. In the fall, the practice has been to do it through the annual policy conference. And those meetings are very good. They're very effective. It's an opportunity to educate members and staff. It's also an opportunity to begin relationships and also to build on relationships. And that makes a big difference. The one thing I would suggest in addition to that is members have offices in their states and in their congressional districts. We should take advantage of those offices. Dealers should reach out to those offices. They should pick up the phone, call the office, ask what staffer handles motor vehicle issues. Go in and meet with that staffer, perhaps with the member. Educate that person, introduce them to your dealership. Tell them how it works. Tell them what national issues you have of interest. It resonates well. It's to the advantage of the association as well as to the member, because when it comes to dealing with issues, they have a better knowledge of our industry and how it works.
More in just a moment.
With 2/3 of shoppers now willing to do their deals 100% online, AutoTrader is making sure you have the right tools to highlight your services to continue selling efficiently and effectively.
In addition to selling millions of cars, Ford also has an eye on the environment. This year, the company issued a sustainability report that laid out some lofty aspirations when it comes to reducing emissions. Among those goals is achieving carbon neutrality for the company on a global basis by 2050. Ford plans to do that by focusing on 3 areas that account for some 95% of its CO2 emissions: vehicles, its supply base, and the company's facilities. Ford has already invested more than $11 billion in electric vehicles, including the Mustang Mach-E, the fully electric F-150 pickup, and the new E-Transit commercial van. The company also said it is on track to power all its manufacturing plants with 100% locally sourced renewable energy by 2035. Ford's sustainability efforts also include the vehicles themselves, which use renewable plant-based materials to make various auto parts. Debbie Mialewski, who heads Ford's materials sustainability efforts, explains how that program came to be.
Literally, we were told over and over it could not be done. I always say we got thrown out of every conference room in the company, but I believed we had a responsibility to do it. So we started working back in 2000 to replace petroleum-based plastics with plant-based materials, which are much greener, much better for the environment. You can grow plants in 90 days. Petroleum is made over millions of years. Why are we using petroleum?
Years ago, your oil used to be cheap. Today, it's not so. Henry Ford himself in the 30s said, if you can make it from petroleum oil, you can make it with soybean oil.
When I started the program, I had no idea that Henry Ford also wanted to use byproducts of plants in cars. These are not the same materials that would be on somebody's plate. These are things that would normally be discarded or, worse yet, burned, like tomato skins, seeds, and stems, calf fibers, agave fiber, compostable resins, wheat straw, soybeans, hulls, money that's taken out of circulation. The list just goes on and on. The initial foams smelled like rancid popcorn. They had terrible structure.
They went through trial after trial for the soy foam, similar with all the materials.
Literally thousands of failed attempts. Go back and fix it, and then run the tests again. We worked very hard in the lab to get the foams ready. And in 2007, when oil prices spiked at over $160 a barrel, this became a very, very popular, desirable idea. So we went from total obscurity to being like nerd rock stars. Thank you so much to TEDx for inviting me out of the lab today. One thing you probably don't know about Ford is that every single North American vehicle now contains soybeans. The work and materials that we have developed, we've shared with other industries so that the environmental benefits can be multiplied for everyone. I remember standing in front of a camera and holding up the first soy foam and saying, it can be done. It was pretty amazing.
That's all for this edition of Automotive Industry News. Thanks for watching. I'm Stacy King.